This virus should be compared to the flu because at worst case scenario, it could be the flu.
It's a virus like the flu.
It may surprise you to learn that Fox News has not been entirely honest with its audience. Of course, that is not at all surprising. Media Matters put together a fantastic series of clips showing how Fox News downplayed the severity of the crisis throughout the pandemic, and also did a little diving into analyzing what Fox News is actually focused on in comparison to the death count. So I'll get to a bit of that later. First, I want to give you a little update here. 200,000 people in the U.S. have now died of the coronavirus. The figure, which public health experts believe is grossly undercounted, marks half a year since U.S. officials started scrambling to contain the pandemic. 200,000. Now, this number on its own, it can be tough to understand how bad this really is until you put that number into context. Put the coronavirus cases in the U.S. into context compared to other major countries, which I try to do on this channel all the time, so people are fully aware of what a number like this actually means. So when you look at the data, and of course I link to all these sources below the video under sources in the description box, so you can check them out yourself. You can also add countries and see how they compare. But here you have daily new confirmed COVID-19 cases per million people. This is the rolling 7-day average. Of course, here it's per capita per million people. You see the US numbers. I mean, it's clear as day. This is America. This is the UK, which is a conservative government. They're seeing a second wave now, but still, look nowhere near where the US numbers have been. Canada, neoliberal government. So you have Italy, Norway, Australia, mixes of social democracies, neoliberals, what have you. But no neo-fascist, except right here. This is the result when you have a government that just does not care about its people. Now, let me show you how Fox News plays into this. So Media Matters put together this series of clips, and pay attention to the coronavirus deaths here at the top and the date, showing you how Fox News downplayed this virus throughout the pandemic.
To date, thankfully, 0 people in the United States of America have died from the coronavirus. 0. Ask yourself, how many people do you know personally who've been hospitalized for coronavirus?
It's beyond absurd, and it's getting to the point of just being needlessly panicking to folks. This isn't yet anything approaching even a fraction of the magnitude of the common flu.
This virus should be compared to the flu because at worst case scenario, it could be the flu.
It's a virus like the flu. It actually can be mistaken for the flu.
I feel like the more I learn about this, the less there is to worry about.
The national left-wing media playing up fears of the coronavirus.
The risk to the average person does remain quite low.
It is very, very difficult to contract this virus.
You know that famous phrase, the cure is worse than the disease? That is exactly the territory we are hurtling towards. You think it's just the coronavirus that kills people?
This is a moment. It will pass. The president has changed the rules on how we will forever fight pandemics here and worldwide. All New Yorkers and the country should be thanking the president. At least so far, it hasn't been the disaster that we feared.
This was not and is not a pandemic, but we do have panic and pandemonium as a result of the hype of this. And it's really unfortunate. Look at the facts.
If we wait for Dr. Fauci's seal of approval to reopen America, we may not have an America to reopen.
You may remember what they first told us back in February and March. They said, we have to take radical steps in order to, quote, flatten the curve. Well, 6 weeks later, we're happy to say that curve has been flattened. The coronavirus epidemic appears to be easing for just a moment in this country. Many are still sick. Some of those will die. But overall, for this moment anyway, there appears to be a lull. Thankfully, tonight, the worst has been avoided. We now know, thanks to widespread blood testing, that the virus isn't that deadly.
The reality we have to come to grips with is, yes, we have crossed that awful 100,000 death milestone, but the effect of it has not been nearly as devastating outside of maybe 11 states.
The Trump campaign is requiring attendees at next week's Oklahoma rally to sign a disclaimer agreeing not to sue the campaign if they get coronavirus at the event.
The president and his campaign should simply not react to any of this alarmist COVID drivel from here on out.
You know what's amazing about the corona thing? Every model, every person, wrong, wrong, wrong,
True.
wrong.
Everybody was wrong. Amazing.
Yep.
Right from the start, we told you the truth about this virus, that most people have nothing to fear.
The politics of fear and the power of science. The politics of fear, big government edition.
Well, let's be real clear. The Democrats are looking for something to distract. And this is their latest version of it. It was Russia, it was COVID. Now their latest thing is it's the post office.
And so far, so good. I mean, when I get coronavirus in a week or two, I'll blame the Democrats, obviously. But so far, everything's fine.
When I woke up this morning and I was looking at the papers and the headlines on TV, the first thing I see is the president didn't want to panic the nation when the virus broke earlier this year. I thought that was just fine and dandy.
All right. So a great video there from Media Matters. I want to point out the very first clip they use here is from the end of February. Now, if you look at the reporting, the audio tapes from Bob Woodward, his conversations with Trump in early or mid-February was discussing how dangerous the virus is, how easily it could be spread. Yet, in public, Trump was saying something completely different. So, of course, Fox News, being the GOP Trump mouthpiece, also downplayed the virus, leading to all of this. So this is not just uniquely a Fox News problem, but it also is a Trump problem. Now, they also go and break down how Fox News focused mainly on complaining about the health measures taken to prevent the spread of the virus compared to their focus on the actual death toll. So here, all Fox News coronavirus segments that report the death toll or complain about health guidelines. This is from September 1st to 20th. So you see here, 55 segments that report national death toll compared to 260 segments that include complaints about any health measure. So the majority of the time on Fox News is spent complaining about what can prevent the virus as opposed to dealing with the severity of it. Now, if you go to their straight news segments, quote unquote, Fox News is kind of divided into, as many cable stations are, divided into their sort of straight news. And then you have the opinion side of things, which is mostly primetime, like Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity. But this is their straight news segments. Again, still, the focus 98 on segments that include complaints about health measures compared to 48 segments that report national death toll. Then, of course, you go to their opinion part. Again, Tucker, Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham, the rest. 162 segments that include complaints about any health measure compared to just 7 that report on national death toll. Again, downplaying the severity of the virus. And of course, a lot of those health measures actually work to save lives. So modelers suggest pandemic lockdowns saved millions from dying of COVID-19. I assume that model is showing millions more now saved from lockdowns, as this was from June 9th. And this is really, worldwide. Obviously, there has been, the lockdowns have been less, or have been taken less seriously in the U.S. compared to other countries, which is part of the reason why you see numbers in the U.S. like this, and other countries much lower. But also, of course, Fox News spent a lot of time, as did Trump, of course, downplaying the importance of masks. Here, Health Essentials, their story on this new study highlights new evidence that masks prevent coronavirus spread. You shouldn't need a study to understand this. Wearing a mask blocks your germs, blocks the virus if you have it from going out to more people. Of course, it's not 100%, but it definitely helps the spread. I mean, I shouldn't have to explain this, but why do you think doctors and surgeons wore masks before there was even a virus? Because masks do something. So, of course, they help prevent the spread. It's amazing this was ever up for debate. The only debate at the beginning of the pandemic was that you shouldn't get N95 masks because that should be for health professionals that really need N95 masks. But everyone else at the beginning should be wearing cloth masks. That was the only debate. But there was never a debate about how effective masks are, because obviously they're effective. But when you have, almost half the country consuming this kind of BS, that's the result. The result is this. And it's just so it's just so devastating. These past 6 months have really beaten me down, because all of this was preventable. All of it. These US numbers should be somewhere down here, but Trump never took it seriously, even though behind the scenes he discussed he knew how serious it was. His actions directly led to the deaths of tens of thousands, at least tens of thousands. And this is what you get.